The dust settled around Eleanor's worn boots as she stood at the edge of Redemption Creek, Wyoming Territory, 1878. Her trembling fingers clutched the only thing of value she had left: her grandmother's silver locket, the delicate filigree catching the harsh afternoon sun. 3 days without food had left her lightheaded, her vision swimming as she stared at the weathered sign. Brennan's Trading Post. Fair deals, honest work. She pushed open the door, the bell's cheerful jingle mocking her desperation. Inside, a broad-shouldered man looked up from behind the counter, his dark eyes assessing but not unkind. Dust motes danced in the shaft of light between them. "I need food," Eleanor said, her voice barely above a whisper. She placed the locket on the scarred wood with shaking hands. "This is real silver. It's worth. I'd be grateful if you'd pause this story for just a moment," the warmth in my voice genuine. "If you're enjoying this tale of hope and second chances in the Wild West, please take a second to subscribe to the From Wild West channel and leave a like on this video. Your support truly matters. It helps us bring you more stories of courage, redemption, and romance from the frontier. Now, let's return to Eleanor and discover what happens next. The man, 6 feet of solid muscle with sun-darkened skin and calloused hands, didn't reach for the locket. Instead, he studied Eleanor's face, the bruise yellowing on her left cheekbone, the way she held her ribs as if breathing hurt, the desperate hope warring with shame in her green eyes. "Name's Jacob Brennan," he said quietly. "And that locket's beautiful, but it's not what I need." Eleanor's hope crumbled. Of course. She had nothing else to offer. She was nothing. Her father had made that clear before she'd fled his house, and her former fiancé had proven it with his fists. "What I need," Jacob continued, his voice like gravel smoothed by river water, "is someone who can cook for my ranch hands. 6 men, 3 meals a day. The work's hard, but you'd have a cabin, safety, and wages." He paused, his gaze unwavering. "Keep your locket. It's not gold I need here. It's someone with the courage to keep standing when everything's tried to knock them down." Eleanor's breath caught. She searched his face for mockery, for the cruel twist she'd learned to expect from men. She found only steady patience. "Why?" The word escaped before she could stop it. "Because I know what it's like to have nothing left but pride," Jacob said simply. "And because my mother raised me to recognize strength when I see it, even when it's wrapped in desperation." The Brennan Ranch sprawled across 2,000 acres of grassland, backed by the Medicine Bow Mountains. The main house was solid timber, built to withstand Wyoming's brutal winters. Eleanor's cabin sat 50 yards distant, small but clean, with a wood stove and a bed that didn't sag. That first evening, she cooked with ingredients she'd only dreamed of: fresh beef, potatoes, flour that wasn't weevil-infested. Her hands remembered skills her mother had taught her before the fever took her. The 6 ranch hands ate in grateful silence, then tipped their hats before returning to the bunkhouse. Jacob lingered, coffee cup cradled in his large hands. "You've got a gift," he said. "Haven't tasted biscuits that good since my mother passed." "How long ago?" Eleanor asked, then immediately regretted the personal question. 5 years, his eyes distant. "Cholera outbreak. Took her and my wife both, 3 days apart." The raw grief in those words resonated in Eleanor's chest. She understood loss, had been drowning in it since her mother died, and left her alone with a father who drank away his pain, and a fiancé who saw her as property to control. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Jacob's gaze refocused on her face. We all carry scars. Some just show more than others. His eyes flickered to her bruised cheek. The man who gave you that? He's still looking for you? Eleanor's hand instinctively rose to her face. Raymond Holloway. He was my fiancé. My father arranged it, sold me like livestock to settle gambling debts. Her voice hardened. Raymond didn't appreciate when I refused to be grateful. He comes here, he'll regret it. Jacob's tone was conversational, but something dangerous glinted in his eyes. You're under my protection now. That means something in this territory. The days fell into rhythm. Eleanor rose before dawn to prepare breakfast, watching through the cabin window as Jacob worked with his men, breaking horses, mending fences, driving cattle. He moved with unconscious grace, his body honed by years of hard labor. She noticed things, how he always checked on the youngest ranch hand, barely 17, teaching him patiently when he made mistakes. How he shared his own meal with the ranch dogs, how he never raised his voice, but men jumped to follow his quiet commands. At night, after the hands retired, Jacob would knock on her cabin door. Thought you might want company, he'd say, never presuming entry until she invited him. They'd sit on her porch steps, watching stars emerge like diamonds scattered across black velvet. He told her about building the ranch with his father, about his mother's garden that he couldn't bring himself to tend after her death, about his wife, Sarah, who'd been his childhood sweetheart, kind and gentle, gone too soon. Eleanor, in turn, found herself sharing pieces of her story. Her mother's love of books, how she taught Eleanor to read by lamplight. Her father's transformation after her mother's death, from loving parent to bitter drunk. The day Raymond had slapped her for speaking to another man at church, then apologized with flowers and promises. Promises he'd broken with increasing violence. You're not property, Jacob said one night, his jaw tight. You're a person, with thoughts and dreams that matter. I don't know what my dreams are anymore, Eleanor admitted. I've spent so long just surviving. Then we'll figure them out together. The word hung between them. Together. Simple but weighted with possibility. Weeks passed. Jacob taught her to ride, his hands steadying her waist as she learned to sit a horse properly. Press with your knees, he instructed, walking beside her mount. Let the horse feel your confidence, even if you're faking it. She laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in months. The sound startled them both. Do that more often, Jacob said softly, and the look in his eyes made her breath hitch. She began noticing things too, how his hair curled slightly at his neck when he needed a trim, the way his hands, though rough with calluses, handled newborn foals with infinite gentleness, the scar that ran from his left eyebrow to his temple, a memento from a Cheyenne raiding party he'd explained, from back when tensions ran hotter between settlers and tribes. One afternoon, Eleanor found wild roses blooming near the creek. She picked a handful, placing them in a jar on her table. That evening, Jacob noticed immediately. Pretty, he said, but he was looking at her, not the flowers. They reminded me that beautiful things still exist, Eleanor replied, then felt her cheeks warm. Even in harsh places. Jacob's voice had dropped lower. That's when they matter most. The air between them felt charged, like before a lightning strike. Eleanor's heart hammered against her ribs. Jacob, she hesitated. You don't want someone like me. I'm damaged, broken. He moved closer, his boots scraping the wooden floor. You're not broken. You're healing. There's a difference. His hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his calloused fingers gently brushed her cheek. I see a woman worth everything, worth patience, worth protecting, worth cherishing. Eleanor closed her eyes, leaning into his touch, despite every instinct screaming that trusting a man led only to pain. "Go slow," she whispered, her voice breaking. "It hurts to hope." "I'll die before I hurt you," Jacob promised, and the fierce certainty in his words wrapped around her like armor. But peace never lasted long on the frontier. Raymond Holloway arrived on a Tuesday morning, riding in with 4 hired guns. Eleanor was hanging laundry when she heard the horses. She recognized Raymond's Palomino immediately, and terror froze her in place. He dismounted with practiced arrogance, his handsome face twisted with fury beneath his expensive Stetson. "Eleanor, get over here, now!" Jacob emerged from the barn, rifle held loosely but ready. His men materialized from various points around the ranch, a coordinated response they'd clearly practiced. "This is private property," Jacob said calmly. "State your business or leave." Raymond's lip curled. "My business is with my fiancée. Eleanor's father gave her to me, legal and proper." "She's stolen property." "I'm not property." Eleanor found her voice, stepping forward despite her shaking legs. "I'm a human being, and I refuse to marry you." "You don't get to refuse." Raymond's hand dropped to his pistol. "Your father owes me $10,000 or you. Those were the terms. The terms of slavery," Jacob said flatly, "which ended with the war. The lady's made her choice clear." Raymond's eyes narrowed. "You're harboring stolen goods, Brennan. That's a hanging offense." "Then bring the law." Jacob's stance shifted subtly, and Eleanor recognized it now, a warrior's readiness. "But we both know your arrangement wouldn't hold up in any court. Judge Henderson doesn't take kindly to men who beat women." Raymond's face flushed. "That's a lie." "Eleanor, tell him you fell." "I'll tell them the truth," Eleanor interrupted, her voice stronger. "About every bruise, every threat, every night I prayed for the courage to escape. I'll tell everyone in Redemption Creek exactly what kind of man you are." For a moment, violence crackled in the air. Raymond's hand twitched toward his gun. His hired men tensed. Then Jacob spoke, his voice soft as silk over steel. "You pull that iron, you better kill me with the first shot. Because if you don't, there won't be enough of you left to bury." The hired guns exchanged glances. They'd been paid for intimidation, not suicide. Raymond read their hesitation, and his courage faltered. "This isn't over," he spat. "Your father will hear about this, Eleanor. My father sold his rights to me when he traded me for poker debts," Eleanor said clearly. "I owe him nothing. I owe you less than nothing. Leave. Now." Raymond mounted his horse, his face mottled with rage. "You're making a mistake, Brennan. The Holloways have power in this territory." "And I have right on my side," Jacob replied. "That counts for more." They watched the riders disappear into the distance. Only when they were specks on the horizon did Eleanor's knees buckle. Jacob caught her, his arms solid and safe. "You did good," he murmured against her there. "So damn good." Eleanor clung to him, breathing in the scent of leather and sage and safety. "He'll come back. Let him." Jacob's chest rumbled with the words. "He'll find the same answer." But Raymond's revenge came not with guns, but with fire. A week later, Eleanor woke to the smell of smoke. She bolted from her cabin to see flames licking up the barn's eastern wall. Jacob was already there with his men, forming a bucket brigade from the well. The horses screamed inside, trapped and terrified. Eleanor didn't think. She ran toward the barn doors. "Eleanor, no!" Jacob's shout barely registered. She yanked the heavy doors open, smoke billowing out in a black cloud. Inside was hell, flames racing up the wooden walls, horses rearing in their stalls. She grabbed a blanket, soaking it in the water trough, then threw it over her head and ran inside. One by one, she freed the panicked horses, slapping their flanks to drive them toward the exit. The smoke seared her lungs. Heat blistered her hands. The roar of flames drowned out everything else. She was leading the last horse, Jacob's black stallion, Midnight, when a support beam cracked with a sound like a gunshot. She looked up to see it falling, time slowing to a crawl. Then she was flying backward, Jacob's body covering hers as the beam crashed down exactly where she'd stood. Something struck Jacob's shoulder with a sickening thud. He grunted in pain, but didn't let go, half carrying, half dragging her from the inferno. They collapsed in the dirt 20 feet from the barn. The men had contained the fire, but the structure was a loss. Eleanor didn't care. She was too focused on the blood soaking through Jacob's shirt, the unnatural angle of his shoulder. "You damn fool woman," Jacob gasped. But his good hand cupped her face tenderly. "Could have died in there." "So could you," Eleanor sobbed, pressing her hands against his wound. "Don't you dare die on me, Jacob Brennan." "Not planning on it," he managed a pained smile. "Got too much to live for now." Doc Hartley set Jacob's dislocated shoulder and stitched the gash on his back, then left Eleanor with strict instructions for wound care. For 3 days, she barely left Jacob's side, changing bandages, spooning broth into him when fever struck, laying cool cloths on his forehead when he thrashed in delirium. On the 4th night, his fever broke. He woke to find Eleanor asleep in the chair beside his bed, her head pillowed on her arms, dark circles under her eyes. "Eleanor," he said softly. She jerked awake, immediately checking his forehead. "Your fever's gone. Thank God." "How long have you been here?" "Since Doc Hartley left." She wouldn't meet his eyes. "Someone had to make sure you didn't die of stubbornness." "Eleanor." He caught her hand with his good one. "Look at me." She did, and tears spilled down her cheeks. "You almost died saving me. Again. I can't lose someone else She stopped, horrified by what she'd almost admitted. "Someone else you what?" Jacob asked gently, though his heart was pounding. "Someone else I love." Eleanor whispered. "There, I said it. I love you, Jacob Brennan, and I'm terrified because everyone I love leaves." He pulled her down to him, ignoring the protest from his shoulder, and kissed her. Not with Raymond's bruising force, but with a tenderness that shattered Eleanor's last defenses. She kissed him back desperately, pouring months of longing into it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jacob rested his forehead against hers. "I love you too," he said hoarsely. "Have since the day you walked into my trading post with nothing but pride and courage. You're the bravest person I've ever met." "I'm not brave. I'm scared all the time." "Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right despite it." He stroked her hair. "You ran into a burning building to save horses. You stood up to Raymond when you'd been trained to cower. You survived hell and came out still capable of love. That's brave." Eleanor laughed through her tears. "You have a very skewed perception of me." "I have the only perception that matters, the truth." He grimaced, shifting his shoulder. "And the truth is, I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you that you're worth every good thing this world has to offer. Marry me, Eleanor." Her breath caught. "Jacob, I know it's fast. I know you're still healing. But I also know life's too short to waste time pretending I don't want forever with you. His dark eyes held hers. Say yes, or say not yet, but don't say no because you think you're not worthy. You're worth everything. Eleanor thought of the girl who'd fled her father's house with nothing, the woman who'd offered her last precious possession for a meal, the person she'd become under Jacob's steady faith in her, stronger, braver, whole again. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. They were married a month later in the small church in Redemption Creek, with Jacob's ranch hands serving as witnesses and half the town in attendance. Eleanor wore a simple ivory dress that the local seamstress had made, her grandmother's locket gleaming at her throat. Jacob stood tall and proud in a new suit, his arm healed enough to slip a gold band on her finger without wincing. Reverend Walsh spoke of second chances and redemption, themes that resonated in this frontier town where so many came to escape their pasts. When he pronounced them husband and wife, Jacob's kiss was both promise and celebration. The reception was held at the newly rebuilt barn, larger than before, paid for by the community who'd rallied around Jacob. There was fiddle music and dancing, food and laughter. Eleanor found herself passed from partner to partner in reels and square dances, her face aching from smiling. As sunset painted the sky in shades of amber and rose, Jacob claimed her for a slow waltz. They moved together naturally now, her body knowing his rhythms. Happy? He murmured, against her temple, deliriously. Eleanor looked up at him, at the man who'd seen worth in her when she'd seen none in herself. I never thought I could feel this safe, this loved. Get used to it, Mrs. Brennan, Jacob said, and the possessive warmth in his voice made her shiver in the best way. Planning to spend the next 50 years showing you exactly how loved you are. That night, in the room they would now share, Jacob loved her with the same patience and tenderness he'd shown from the beginning. Tell me if I should stop, he whispered, his work-roughened hands gentle on her skin. Tell me what you need. You, Eleanor breathed, trusting completely for the first time in her life. Just you. Together. Together, Jacob agreed, and made it a vow. Epilogue. 3 years later, Eleanor stood in her garden, Sarah's garden, restored and expanded, watching Jacob teach their 2-year-old daughter Emma to ride. The little girl's dark curls bounced as she giggled, fearless in her father's arms. The ranch had prospered. They'd added another 100 head of cattle, built a second bunkhouse. 3 of Jacob's ranch hands had married and brought their wives to the territory, creating a small community. Raymond Holloway had made one more attempt at revenge, but Judge Henderson had issued a restraining order after Eleanor pressed charges. She'd stood in that courtroom and told her truth, refusing to be shamed. Raymond had slunk back to Denver, his reputation ruined. Last she heard, even his own family wanted nothing to do with him. Her father had written once, a drunken letter demanding money. She'd burned it unread and felt nothing but pity. "Mama, look," Emma called. "I riding." "I see, sweetheart." Eleanor waved, her heart full to bursting. Jacob caught her eye over their daughter's head and mouthed, "I love you." Eleanor pressed her hand to her slightly rounded belly, where their second child grew, and mouthed back, "I love you more." She'd come to this ranch with nothing but a silver locket and desperation. She'd found everything: safety, purpose, love, family, home. Jacob had given her space to heal and the courage to bloom. Together, they'd built a life richer than any storybook ending. The frontier was still harsh, winters brutal, droughts devastating, dangers ever present. But Eleanor had learned that beauty thrived in harsh places. that love could be both shelter and adventure, that she was stronger than she'd ever imagined. As the sun set over the Medicine Bow Mountains, painting the grasslands gold, Eleanor smiled. This was her life now, earned, not given, chosen, not forced. And it was more magnificent than any dream she dared to dream. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Eleanor and Jacob's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.